They called a code and they come running in. I was above my body. I could see them doing chest compressions. I could see them, all the nurses around. I could smell the most beautiful flowers I've ever smelled. And then I heard music. When I opened my eyes, I knew where I was. I knew I was in heaven.
Charlotte Holmes' extraordinary near-death experience in 2019 revealed visions of heaven, hell, and a powerful prophecy connected to humanity's future. Amid the peace of heaven, Charlotte was shown a terrifying glimpse of hell, an endless, fiery chasm symbolizing spiritual destruction. Within this darkness, she witnessed a prophecy for 2025, catastrophic fires devastating the United States. But amid the chaos, hope emerged. Charlotte saw Baron Trump, no longer the quiet son of a former president, but a beacon of resilience and leadership. In the vision, Baron stood amidst the disaster, leading rescue efforts, offering unity, and embodying strength. His actions symbolized humanity's potential for redemption even in the darkest times. The message was clear. While trials loom ahead, individuals like Baron Trump remind us of the power of faith, compassion, and action to overcome adversity. Charlotte returned with a mission to share this warning and inspire others to choose light and love in the face of challenges. Let Charlotte's story inspire you to stand strong in faith and make a difference. In 2019, Charlotte Holmes began her day like any other, with a routine visit to her cardiologist. Her faith and resilience had carried her through many trials, but this ordinary day would soon transform into one of the most extraordinary experiences of her life. Charlotte had a history of high blood pressure, and regular checkups were part of her health routine. As she walked into the clinic with her husband Danny, she was calm and cheerful, completely unaware of the crisis about to unfold. The waiting room hummed with quiet activity, patients flipping through magazines or scrolling on their phones. Charlotte's warm smile and kind words to the receptionist reflected her optimism. She was known for her sunny demeanor, a trait that belied the silent storm brewing within her body. When her name was called, Charlotte and Danny made their way to the examination room, exchanging light-hearted remarks to ease any tension. Dr. Carter, a trusted and experienced cardiologist, greeted Charlotte warmly. "Let's see how you're doing today," he said, as he began the routine examination. Charlotte's blood pressure was always a concern, but she had no reason to believe today's visit would be different from the others. As the nurse wrapped the cuff around her arm and the machine hummed to life, Charlotte's thoughts wandered to her garden and the plans she had for the weekend. But the nurse's demeanor changed as she read the monitor. Her brow furrowed, and she quickly called Dr. Carter over. He studied the results, his expression growing serious. "Charlotte," he said, his voice calm but firm, "your blood pressure is 234/134. This is dangerously high. You're at immediate risk for a stroke or a heart attack. We need to act fast." Danny's face drained of color as he gripped Charlotte's hand. Charlotte, though startled, remained outwardly composed. "What happens next?" she asked, her tone steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We're admitting you to the hospital right away," Dr. Carter explained. "This is critical, but we're going to do everything we can to stabilize you." Charlotte nodded, her faith grounding her in the midst of the chaos. "God's plan is perfect," she said softly, more to herself than anyone else. Danny's eyes brimmed with unshed tears as he squeezed her hand. For Charlotte, the transition from the hospital room to an ethereal plane was almost seamless. One moment she was surrounded by the frenetic efforts of the medical team trying to save her, and the next she was hovering above it all, her spirit free from the constraints of her physical form. It was an experience both surreal and profoundly peaceful. "I could see everything so clearly," she recounted. The nurses were moving with urgency, their faces focused but tense. Danny stood in the corner of the room, his hands clasped tightly, his eyes filled with tears. I could see him silently praying. It broke my heart to see his fear, but at the same time, I felt completely at peace. Charlotte's perspective shifted. She no longer felt tethered to her body or the confines of the hospital room. Instead, she began to ascend, her surroundings becoming less distinct as she moved toward a realm filled with light and tranquility. She described the sensation as being enveloped in a warm embrace, as if the very essence of love was surrounding her. "The light was unlike anything I've ever seen," she said. It wasn't harsh or blinding. It was soft and inviting, yet it radiated a power that was undeniable. I felt drawn to it, as if it were calling me home. As Charlotte ascended, she became aware of her surroundings changing. The sterile white walls of the hospital faded away, replaced by colors so vivid and rich that they seemed to pulse with life. Flowers of every hue stretched out before her, their petals shimmering with an iridescent glow. The air was filled with their fragrance, a scent so pure and sweet that it seemed to heal her soul with every breath. "I've never seen colors like that on Earth," Charlotte explained. Each flower seemed alive, not just in the way plants are, but truly alive, as if they were aware of their existence. Their beauty was overwhelming and their scent was intoxicating. It was as if the very air was infused with the essence of heaven. Amid the splendor of the flowers, Charlotte became aware of another presence. It was faint at first, like a distant melody carried on the wind, but it grew steadily louder until it surrounded her completely. It was music, but not the kind she had ever heard before. "The music wasn't just sound," Charlotte said, her voice trembling with emotion. "It was alive. Every note resonated with my spirit, filling me with joy and peace. It was as if the entire universe was singing in perfect harmony, a symphony of praise and worship. Everything around me, the flowers, the air, the light, moved in rhythm with the music. It was as if creation itself was alive, worshipping God." The music was so captivating that Charlotte momentarily forgot about her own existence. She felt as though she had become one with the melody, her spirit merging with the divine harmony. In that moment, she experienced a profound sense of belonging, as if she had finally come home. Despite the overwhelming beauty and peace of her surroundings, Charlotte felt a gentle tug, a reminder that her journey was not yet complete. She looked back toward the hospital room and saw her lifeless body lying on the bed. The medical team was still working frantically to revive her, their movements a stark contrast to the serenity she felt. "I realized then that I wasn't supposed to stay," Charlotte said. "As much as I wanted to remain in that place of perfect peace, I knew there was more for me to do. My time hadn't come yet." The realization brought with it a mix of emotions. On one hand, Charlotte longed to stay in the heavenly realm, to bask in its beauty and love forever. On the other hand, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the opportunity to return and share her experience with others. She understood that her journey was part of a greater plan, one that she could not yet fully comprehend. As she prepared to leave, Charlotte felt the presence of an unseen guide, a comforting force that reassured her she was not alone. She began her descent, the heavenly light fading gradually as she returned to the physical world. The music lingered in her mind, its melody etched into her soul as a reminder of the divine beauty she had witnessed. When Charlotte finally opened her eyes, she found herself back in the hospital room. The harsh fluorescent lights and the beeping of monitors were a stark contrast to the serene beauty she had just experienced. But even in the midst of the chaos, she felt a profound sense of peace. She knew that her life had been forever changed, and she was determined to share her story with the world. "I came back with a purpose," Charlotte said. "God showed me a glimpse of heaven so that I could tell others about it. It's real, and it's more beautiful than we can ever imagine." As Charlotte stood amidst the radiant beauty of heaven, her senses were overwhelmed by the splendor around her. Every detail was sharper, more vivid, and imbued with a life force that she could feel in her very spirit. Yet, amidst the awe-inspiring scenery, her attention was drawn to figures approaching her from the distance. At first, they were silhouettes against the glowing light, but as they came closer, their features became unmistakable. The first faces she recognized were those of her parents. They appeared vibrant and youthful, exuding an energy and joy that she had never seen in their earthly lives. Her mother's warm smile and her father's kind eyes filled her with a sense of comfort and belonging. Tears welled in Charlotte's eyes as she realized the significance of this reunion. "Mom? Dad?" she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Her parents nodded, their smiles radiant. Her mother reached out to embrace her, and Charlotte felt a surge of love so pure and powerful that it left her breathless. It was as if all the years of separation and sorrow were erased in an instant. Behind her, parents stood other familiar faces: her sister, who had passed away too soon, her grandparents, and friends she had lost over the years. Each one exuded a light from within, a reflection of the divine glory that surrounded them. They were dressed in garments of pure white that shimmered with an unearthly glow. It was like seeing them as God intended them to be, Charlotte later explained. They were whole, radiant, and free from the pain and struggles of earthly life. The reunion was not limited to family members. Charlotte noticed figures she didn't immediately recognize. They stood slightly apart, their faces unfamiliar, yet somehow comforting. She realized these were ancestors she had never met, but whose presence felt deeply connected to her. "I knew them," Charlotte said. "Even though we had never met on Earth, I recognized them in my spirit. It was like coming home to a family I didn't know I had." Amid the reunion, Charlotte's attention was drawn to a child standing quietly among the group. He appeared to be around 5 years old, with bright eyes and an innocent smile. Something about him felt familiar, but she couldn't place it. "Who is this?" Charlotte asked, her voice soft with wonder. A gentle voice answered from within her spirit. "It's your child, the one you lost." Charlotte's breath caught as the memory of her miscarriage surfaced. Decades earlier, she had lost a baby during pregnancy, a pain she had carried silently for years. And now, standing before her, was the child she had never gotten to meet. "He was perfect," Charlotte said, tears streaming down her face. "So full of life and joy. I had always wondered if I would ever see him again, and here he was. God is so good." She knelt to embrace the boy, and as their spirits connected, Charlotte felt a love so profound that it seemed to fill every corner of her being. It was a moment of redemption and healing, a reminder that nothing is ever truly lost in God's kingdom. As Charlotte basked in the joy of reunion, she noticed that each person she encountered seemed to reflect aspects of God's glory. Their faces shone with a light that was not their own, as if they were mirrors reflecting divine love and beauty. It was a humbling and awe-inspiring sight. The reunion was more than a joyful gathering, it was deeply healing. Old wounds, regrets, and sorrows melted away in the presence of such overwhelming love. There was no pain, no sadness, Charlotte said. Only love, the kind of love that only comes from God. When the time came for Charlotte to leave, her loved ones smiled at her with encouragement. and reassurance. "We'll be here when it's your time," her mother said, her voice filled with peace. Charlotte felt no sadness, only gratitude. She understood that her journey was not yet complete and that she had been given this glimpse of eternity to share with others. As she turned to depart, the heavenly light grew brighter, and she felt herself being gently guided back to the earthly realm. As Charlotte moved away from the embrace of her loved ones, her attention was drawn to a light unlike any she had ever seen. It was brighter than the sun, yet did not hurt to look at. The light seemed to radiate a love so pure and overwhelming that it brought tears to her eyes. Instinctively, she felt drawn to it, knowing that she was standing in the presence of something or someone far greater than herself. "I knew immediately who it was," Charlotte said, her voice trembling with emotion. "It was my Heavenly Father." The light seemed to surround her, filling every part of her being with warmth and peace. It wasn't just light, it was life, love, and holiness all at once. Every part of her being resonated with the presence, as if she was standing before the very source of existence. "I felt like I was home," Charlotte explained. "There was no fear, no doubt, only a sense of belonging and love beyond anything I had ever imagined." As she stood in awe, she noticed that the light seemed to communicate with her, not in words, but in feelings and impressions. It was as if every question she had ever asked was answered in an instant. She felt the depth of God's love for her and for all of creation, a love that was unconditional and eternal. Charlotte also became aware of a figure standing near the light. At first, she couldn't make out who it was, but as she drew closer, she realized it was Jesus. His presence was both humbling and comforting, and his eyes held a compassion that seemed to pierce her soul. "Welcome, Charlotte," he said, his voice gentle and filled with love. "You are deeply loved." Charlotte fell to her knees, overcome by the magnitude of the moment. Tears streamed down her face as she felt waves of grace and mercy washing over her. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for everything." Jesus reached out a hand to lift her up, and as he did, Charlotte felt a strength and peace that she had never known. He showed her glimpses of her life, moments where she had felt lost or broken, and revealed how his presence had been with her through it all. "You have always been loved," he said, "and your journey is not yet over. There is more for you to do." Charlotte nodded, understanding that her time in this heavenly realm was meant to prepare her for what lay ahead. As much as she longed to stay, she knew her purpose was to return and share the love and hope she had experienced. Before she left, Jesus gave her a final message. "Tell them that I love them. Tell them that I am always with them." The light around her grew brighter, and Charlotte felt herself being gently pulled back to the earthly realm. Though she was leaving, the memory of the light and the love it embodied would remain with her forever. Charlotte had just basked in the unimaginable beauty of heaven when her journey took a sudden and terrifying turn. The radiant light that had enveloped her began to dim, and the warmth was replaced by an eerie coldness. She felt herself descending, the serenity of heaven replaced by a foreboding darkness. She stood at the edge of an immense, fiery chasm, its depths seemingly endless. "I was standing at the precipice of a place no one should ever go," Charlotte recounted. "The air was thick with despair, and the cries of anguish were unbearable. It was as though I could feel the weight of every soul's suffering. The sight was harrowing. Flames leapt into the air, casting eerie shadows on the twisted, barren terrain. Figures moved aimlessly within the flames, their faces contorted with pain and regret. Their cries echoed endlessly, a symphony of torment that struck Charlotte's heart. The stench of sulfur and burning flesh filled the air, oppressive and nauseating. Amid this horrifying scene, Charlotte's attention was drawn to an unusual vision that appeared before her. It was like a window into the earthly realm, showing events unfolding in real time. She saw a vast landscape of flames raging through forests, consuming homes and leaving devastation in its wake. The words, "United States, 2025, appeared in fiery letters above the scene. Charlotte gasped as she watched the flames engulf communities, displacing families and causing widespread chaos. Amid the chaos, she saw a figure emerge, a young man standing resolutely amidst the destruction. His face was familiar, though Charlotte couldn't place it immediately. He appeared to be directing efforts to save people, guiding them through the inferno to safety. The name Baron Trump flashed across her mind, and she realized with astonishment who she was witnessing. Baron, known as the son of a former president, was now a grown man, standing as a beacon of hope amidst the disaster. His voice carried strength and authority as he rallied volunteers and emergency services to protect the vulnerable and bring order to the chaos. As the vision unfolded, a voice echoed around Charlotte, low and menacing, coming from the depths of the chasm. "They will burn for their arrogance. The world will pay for turning away from the light." Charlotte shuddered, feeling the voice's sinister intent. She understood that the fire was more than a natural disaster. It symbolized humanity's struggles, a reflection of choices and consequences. Yet even amidst the flames, Baron Trump's presence symbolized resilience, compassion, and the potential for redemption. "Why am I seeing this?" Charlotte whispered, her voice trembling. A gentle yet firm presence, the same guiding light she had felt in heaven, answered her. "This is a warning. The fire represents not just physical destruction, but the spiritual state of humanity. But there is hope, for even in the darkest moments, light will shine through those who choose to stand for truth and love." Charlotte's heart ached as she realized the importance of the vision. She saw the fire's devastation as a metaphor for the spiritual battles humanity faced: division, greed, and a loss of faith. Yet Baron Trump's actions offered a powerful reminder that even in the face of such trials, individuals could make a difference by embodying compassion and unity. The vision began to fade, but its impact lingered. Charlotte stood at the edge of the chasm, her spirit heavy with what she had witnessed. The cries of the lost souls still echoed in her ears, but she felt a renewed determination. "I knew then that my mission wasn't just to share the beauty of heaven, but also to warn about the consequences of turning away from God," she later explained. The fire wasn't just about destruction, it was about redemption and the power of standing firm in faith. As she prepared to return to her earthly body, Charlotte carried the weight of the vision with her, knowing that it was a call to inspire hope, unity, and a return to the light before it was too late. The visions of heaven and hell began to fade, leaving Charlotte with a profound sense of her responsibility. She felt herself being pulled back toward her earthly body, the transition sudden and disorienting. One moment, she was standing at the precipice of the eternal realms, and the next, she was jolted awake in the sterile hospital room. As her eyes fluttered open, she was greeted by Danny's tear-streaked face. His hand gripped hers tightly, and his voice broke as he called her name. The hospital staff moved quickly, their relief evident, as monitors beeped rhythmically, signaling Charlotte's stabilization. "I saw you praying," Charlotte whispered weakly, her voice barely audible. Danny's tears flowed freely as he nodded, his lips trembling with gratitude. "God brought you back to me," he said, his voice choked with emotion. I never stopped praying for you." Charlotte closed her eyes, letting the reality of her return sink in. She felt a lingering warmth in her chest, a residue of the divine love she had experienced. Though her body felt weak, her spirit brimmed with purpose. She knew her journey had changed her forever. Charlotte emerged from the hospital not only physically healed but spiritually transformed. Her experience had ignited a fire within her to share what she had seen and felt. She began speaking at churches, community events, and hospitals, her words carrying the weight of her extraordinary encounter. "God gave me a second chance," Charlotte often said, "and I intend to use every moment to glorify Him and share His love." Her testimony resonated deeply with those who heard it. People approached her after every speech, their eyes filled with tears, sharing how her story had inspired them to reconnect with their faith, mend broken relationships, or find hope in difficult times. Charlotte also dedicated her time to comforting the sick and grieving. She would sit by hospital bedsides, holding hands and praying with those in despair, offering them a glimpse of the peace and love she had experienced. Her presence became a source of comfort and hope, a living testament to the power of faith and divine grace. Though Charlotte never forgot the horrors she had glimpsed in the chasm, she used that vision as a catalyst to reach those who felt lost. Her words were a beacon, a call to turn toward the light and embrace the love of God. "I may not understand why I was chosen to see what I did," she often said, "but I trust that it was part of God's plan, and as long as I'm here, I will continue to share His message of hope and redemption,